progress of commercial banking for use of Indian population. As you know, traditionally, in our different sessions, we have discussed with you that banking, just like any other joint stock company, was meant initially, or rather, it turned out initially to be an adjunct of the other sectors, like the house of Tatas. If they have an industry in the steel sector, in auto sector, they also had an industry in service sector of banking. But in course of our different sessions, we have also understood that time and again, the regulation of the country, the regulator of the country, the executive of the country, they have tried to make these entities, known as banking entities, responsible, because they hold the trust of depositors. They hold money of depositors, and therefore they have to lend it responsibly. Now, that being one side of the story, the other at the same time, that we in post-independent era, in post-independence, we have also been a welfare country, a country given, a democratic country given to the welfare of people at large. We have also seen in some of the sessions that a major portion of our populace lives in rural areas. They can be, as far as financial inclusion is concerned, as far as attachment with the banking sector is concerned, they can be treated as a deprived sector. Now, this being the condition, the policymakers, they thought that, look, not only the banking industry as such should stop lending to some of the sectors, like I gave an example of Tata, or maybe Birla, or maybe Ambani's, or whatever. I mean, just for the sake of example. So the banking industry should not lend to its manufacturing arm, or it should not lend to its sister concern, its subsidiary, or its related concern who are in other industrial fields. That was one side. The other side was that the people of India, certain sectors which were deprived because, for the reason I just gave, because they were directed to lending it to those sectors, some other sectors were deprived. And it was at this point of time, post 1965, that was from historical point of view, that is important, because we just had China war in 62 and 65, we had Pakistan war. The post-independence leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, and after that Lal Bahadur Shastri, they passed away, and the new generation at that point of time, Mrs. Gandhi, she took over. Already we had made lot of beginnings as far as socialization is concerned. But this period, 1968 onwards, that was the period that is known as the period of social control. The banking industries which were in private hands, which by way of example, I said that in the hands of Tatas and Birlas, Now that was time had come when it was the policymaker were thinking in terms of nationalizing. So nationalization is one thing that took place in two phases in 1969 and 1980. Then they realized that specific institutions are required. That already we had discussed in some of the previous sessions. And then RRBs came into being when cooperatives, the regulation of the banking regulation of the country was made applicable to the cooperative societies or the cooperative banks, which were earlier societies and were under the singular control of the government of respective states. So this is how we progressed. And then for the first time in 1968, the National Credit Council, they discussed about lending to agriculture, lending to small scale industries, lending to export. And finally, in 1972, the very concept of priority sector that was formalized. So we will, so that is the background in which we will have the discussion today. And these discussions will be based on the master direction that was issued by RBI on in July 2016, on 7 July 2016. And the master direction, master direction is known by the number. You can go to the website of RBI and see the master direction FIDD.co.plan/04.09.01 2016-17, dated 7 July 2016. And this is master direction number 33 of 2016-17. And this has been periodically updated. The last updation took place in December 2019. So based on this master direction, which was actually meant for the scheduled commercial banks of the country, we will have the discussions today. And we'll see how the priority sectors have been categorized. What are the sectors which can be treated as or defined as priority sectors? What obligations banks have in respect of these sectors? So with this, I will request the admin to allow me to share the PowerPoint presentation, and I will start that. I will request the host to please allow me to share the screen, my PowerPoint presentation.
Done.
So let us see what a priority sector is. As I discussed just now, that the lendings of the bank was not going to the desired sector, or rather there was a need that a particular amount of credit should go to desired sector. And then we came to defining what priority sector is, and we need to understand this priority sector as an instrument which aims to ensure that adequate institutional credit flows into some of the vulnerable sectors. Like I was just discussing, that a major portion of our society is in rural areas. A major section of them are into agriculture. As small industries, they were not getting appropriate loan. Certain sectors that was of importance, for example, export, that we were not getting. Yes. And the reason was, like I said, that banks were functioning for its, they were functioning for its profitability. They are functioning for the masters. They are functioning for their shareholders, and therefore profit was a central motive, was a central driver as far as their operations were concerned. So, and priority sector credit as an instrument, it was devised to ensure that the credit goes to the sectors which are desirable in a welfare economy. In an economy which needs to give emphasis on agriculture, in an economy which needs to give emphasis on small scale industries, or what we know in the modern days as MSME. So this is what priority sector credit is. Now, this is why it is required. First reason is social banking. I said that was the time 1968. That was the time when social control was the key word. I mean, gradually that was prior to nationalization. So a kind of control of those institutions which were in private hands, which were doing what they thought was appropriate for them, but what the government, what the policymakers thought is not appropriate. So it is required for the social banking, for inclusive growth, because in financial inclusion or inclusive growth, that is the B word as up in the modern era, in the era particularly after 2005. Then that is the reason, or the one of the objectives of this priority sector is to direct institutional credit to certain segments of population, like primary producers, like farmers, artisans, weaker sections, small industries, small businesses, and trade, small trade. Then certain activities which were important for economy, like livelihood, like employment, poverty alleviation, food production, export, and now, of course, after this master direction of 2016, or in 2016, the last time that we had revision in priority sector area, because we started in 1968 and formalized in 1972, but over a period of time, we have, keeping in view the needs of the society, we have kept on changing it, and the final changes were made in 2016. 2016 April for as far as scheduled banks were concerned, scheduled commercial banks were concerned, and in December 2016 for regional rural bank. So now let us see, we have already discussed the background of priority sector. Now let us see how it all started, or rather the history of priority sector credit. So as I just discussed, that National Credit Council in 1968, they, for the first time, they said that commercial banks should lend more to agriculture, exports, and SSI. So that time, the first direction came that commercial banks should be lending to agriculture, exports, and SSI. Then formally, the definition was formalized in 1972 when an informal study group on statistics was set up by RBI, and based on its recommendations, they defined and they kind of put into code what a priority sector is and what the banks need to do. Because earlier, 1968, they had only advised the banks to lend more. And then the instructions came that banks have to ensure that 33.3% of credit flow should go to priority sector by March 1979. So till the end of 1979, financial year 1979, they should be lending. They are lending to the sectors known as priority sector. Must be a minimum of 33.3%. Then CBs were advised, the commercial banks were advised to achieve a revised target. So earlier it was 33.3%. Then they said that this should be 40%. So 40% of their total lending should be towards the sectors known as priority sector. So this was after the recommendations of Krishnaswamy Committee, and the timeline given was March 1985. Then it is at this point of time that they came up with the idea of sub-targets within priority sector. Like priority sector, suppose, for example, if I say that it is for agriculture. So agriculture has so many components. If a bank lends to an MFI, which is otherwise a lending to MFI, but MFI lends to agriculture, then it also counts for priority sector achievements towards agriculture. Once this is agriculture, it could also be a high-tech agriculture. So as far as agriculture is concerned, by financing high-tech agriculture, which is more profitable, bank may be circumventing the instructions about priority sector. That is why the concept of sub-target came. And then within agriculture, there would be something called direct agriculture. So maybe if you are lending 40% in priority sector, 18% should go to direct agriculture. So something of that kind. Then again, the target group should also be there. Like agriculture, you should not be farming, we should not be financing only to the big farmers. There should also be among your borrowers a particular section, a certain minimum numbers of people to whom the outstanding is more. It is about a certain percent of your lending. So likewise, that subgroup was also within priority sector introduced, the concept of subgroup. Then again in 2007, following CS Murthy committee recommendations, the guidelines were revised. Then subsequent revision were by Malegaon committee, Nair committee in 2012, and after that RBI set up an internal working group in 2014, which gave its recommendation, and finally the guidelines which we have today, or what we are discussing right now, it came into being in April 2015 as far as scheduled commercial banks are concerned, and December 2015 as far as RBI is concerned. So now let us see what are the categories, because earlier in priority sector, we were discussing about what we knew by priority sector is that agriculture, within that there will be some sub target direct to agriculture and all that. Then there will be non-farm sector or the SSI sector. Of course, SSI sector at that point of time was not defined the way MSME has now been done. And then other priority sectors. So it was like that. Now, gradually having got the experience in financing, now we have come to the stage when we have categorized it into agriculture. Now there are 8 sectors. 7 sectors are normal and 1 is other. That also will see what are those items which are included in others. So those 7 sectors are agriculture and what we know as MSME, micro, small and medium enterprises. Then export credit. Then we have education. We have housing, social infrastructure, renewable energy, and then others. So these are the 8 sectors which are categorized as priority sector. So these are the sectors to which, to these 8 sectors, banks must be financing its total advances. A certain percent of their advances must go to these 8 sectors. If they don't, there are certain other ways by which the shortfall would be taken care of, and even then, if still shortfall is there, then also the provision of penalty has been prescribed by the RBI. Now, let us see one concept of A and BC, because as far as priority sector is concerned, there is a concept of aggregate net bank credit. So, aggregate net bank credit is known by the bank credit in India will be discounted with RBI and other financial institutions, because those are, through these sources, they are in fact taking money. So this is, and again, that they are using for the purpose of lending. That is why that is reduced, and then net bank credit is dealt with as a difference between bank credit less bill discounted with RBI and other institutions. And then in this, we add the bonds, debentures in non-SLR categories under held to maturity category, and then outstanding deposits under RIDF, because just now I introduced one concept that if there is a shortfall, so that we'll see later. So, and why I introduced that concept, because here we talk about outstanding deposits under RIDF. So that shortfall, wherever in their lending to the 8 sectors that we saw in previous slide, if it is not there, then through their returns, RBI will come to know that what is their shortfall, and accordingly they will allocate certain funds which they have to contribute to the institutions that we have mentioned here, outstanding deposits under RIDF and other eligible funds, either with NABARD or NHB or SIDBI or Mudra. Even Mudra also, we are using the resources, the shortfall of priority sector lending. Those resources are used for the purpose of, again, these are the priority sectors. So through indirect means, we try to cater to the requirements of priority sector. So by this and deducting other items, we come to the A and BC. So A and BC aggregate net bank credit. That is basically, this is how it will be calculated. The entire calculation will be done. It is just for the, I am introducing this concept because based on this only the calculation of achievement of priority sector target will be done. So like if it says that 40% of its loan should be to the priority sector, means 40% of A and BC aggregate net bank credit. Net bank credit is arrived at by this formula. So they have to so whenever we talk about the achievement, this will be in terms of this. And there is only one exception, that is in case of the foreign banks which have less than 20% of less than 20 branches operating in India. So for them there is of course some exceptions for treatment of balance sheet. So we will not go into that nitty-gritty. So we will basically discuss about this A and BC, or you can take it as this is A and BC is basically the net credit. Whenever we are talking about what should be the percentages we are talking, this is about A and BC. So for there are three categories we'll discuss about the priority sector targets and sub targets. Now we have seen that what are the sectors which will be known as priority sector. Now we'll see what are the targets and sub targets which have been set under priority sector. Targets and sub target. What I mean by that is that what percent of their A and BC or the bank credit. That's what we are meaning. But whenever I'm, as I told you, and whenever I'm saying that bank credit, what I'm meaning is A and BC, aggregate net bank credit. So there are three categories. One is for regional rural banks, like in Manipur, you have Manipur Rural Bank. Then you have scheduled commercial bank, like any other bank, the State Bank of India or Punjab National Bank. And the third category is the foreign banks. So let us see for domestic scheduled commercial banks, what are the targets? So the total priority sector target for this category of bank is 40% of A and BC. Means whatever is their total, if 100 rupees they have finance. Of course, this finance, what I mean is in a common man's parlance. But when I say finance, means what I mean is their total A and BC. So if 100 rupees they have finance, 40 have necessarily to go to the 8 sectors that we just now saw, which constitute the priority sector. And so this is total priority sector should be this. Out of this, now having first seen that these 8 sectors they have done 40%, we will also see that individually it should not be lopsided. It should be evenly distributed to the sub-sectors, the different sectors. So out of these, there has to be a necessary 18% of A and BC to agriculture. And out of the total priority sector, minimum of 8% must be to the small and marginal farmer. Because what from the beginning we have been telling is that the entire exercise is to see that bank's credit also goes to the vulnerable section of the society, because ours is essentially a welfare economy. So for small and marginal farmers, 8% have to go. For micro enterprises, now we have a category of MSME, but in this also we have SSI, which has got a very big investment. Means SSI, even though we call it a small scale industry, but they are not as small. But in that category, also we have certain industries which have very low investment in plant and machinery, which have low turnover. So this sector also has to be financed. They need not be neglected. So while the financing has to be done to MSME or SSI, what we say, at the same time, care has to be taken that micro enterprises necessarily are financed to the extent of 7.5% of NBC. Again, the entire exercise is about the vulnerable section. So two weaker sections also 10% of the financing. So it is a sub target. Whatever you have financed 40% fine, but in this, whether weaker sections have been covered or not, whether the out of the total ANBC or out of the total financing 10% has gone to the weaker section or not. So that will be the concern as far as the instructions of priority sector lending is concerned. Now, second category, we have seen just now about the scheduled commercial bank. Now, we'll also see regional rural bank, because regional rural banks are one category of bank which were initially which were found for the purpose of lending only to the what was known as target group, or basically they were to finance 100% to priority sector only. So that was the initial idea. Over a period of time, of course, a lot of churning has gone through. That was initially it was intended to be an entity which will have a cost structure of a state government and the feel of commercial banking. But it has, over a period of time, it has undergone changes, and it has also resulted in, when initially there were 196 RRBs in the country. Now, as on date, it has come down to 42. So it has undergone a massive transformation. In the process, also the priority sector requirement of these banks have undergone change. So for them, the priority sector targets and sub targets are the total priority sector. While we saw it is for scheduled bank 40%, for them it is 75% of the outstanding debt. So whatever their total credit is there, 75% is for has to go to priority sector. Out of this, again, agriculture minimum, it has to be 18% like other banks. For a small and marginal farmer, 8% like other banks. Micro enterprises, 7.5% like other scheduled banks. But for weaker sections, while it was 10% for commercial bank, for RRB it is 15%. And also medium enterprises, social infrastructure and renewable energy, which are again the sectors which qualify to be a priority sector, but there they cannot lend more than maximum 15%, or they cannot lend more than 15%. So while they are priority sector, as far as RRBs are concerned, there is some gap. Then we come to the final category, that is foreign bank. And as I was telling that there were two categories, one less than 20, another more than 20. But of course, now this categorization will no longer be valid, because there was a kind of a graded, graduated achievement was prescribed by the RBI for the category of foreign banks which had less than 20 branches. But now that period is up to 31st March 2020. So now that period is over. So now, as on date, I mean for 21, when, or for this quarter, maybe June quarter, first time they will be when examining the things, they will be receiving the return. So there now across the board, the instructions are the same. Means whether it is less than 20 or more than 20, their total priority sector commitment have to be 40% of ANBC. Earlier, it was 40% was to be achieved in a phased manner. So like 20, it was to be 40, 19, 38, 18, 36. So like it was. But now 2020 we have crossed. So both the bank, this is just for your illustration I have given. So this is how in that circular, I mentioned a circular 16 or master direction, in that it was laid down. But now from now on, next year, next means from June onwards, this is going to be 40% for both. And agriculture again for them is 18%. Micro enterprises like other banks, scheduled commercial banks 7%, and weaker section 10% as for scheduled commercial banks. Means scheduled commercial banks means domestic scheduled commercial. So now this is as far as target sub-targets are concerned. Now we come to the second part of it. Like I was telling you that 1968 the idea came first National Credit Council. They said that commercial banks have to do the lending because at that time RRBs were not in existence. So commercial banks have to do the lending as far as priority sector is concerned to the sectors like agriculture and the smaller scale industries and export. So those were the times, and this is how it went, and that is why during my course of discussion I also said that priority sector was treated as lending to agriculture, means lending to short-term agriculture or what was known as crop loan, and lending to long-term agriculture or what was known as investment credit, like sectors like minor irrigation, land development, or fishery, or allied sector. So that was one. So those areas were considered as the priority sector. Likewise, there used to be non-farm sector or the SSI sector. There to working capital and to term loan, they were also considered as priority sector. And finally, there was service sector. They were known as other priority sector. So in other priority sector also, that was how it was being done for quite some time. Till revision took place, and finally it was formalized into the guidelines that we have discussed so far in master direction. And so we'll see that what are those areas which make it different from what we have been used to seeing in pre 2016. Yeah. So earlier it was SSI. So now earlier only agriculture, SSI, and OPS or other priority sector. But now they have specifically added certain new areas. Of course, export was there, education was there. That was a part of other priority sector. But now new categories have been added, and one is medium enterprises. Means you also have bigger enterprises. Loans to bigger enterprises will count towards priority sector lending. Then you also have social infrastructure, like the need for hospital, need for schools. So those things will also come. We will of course see some details and some limitations are also there. I mean some financial quantum, some financial cap will be there as far as financing of these sectors are concerned. That we'll see later. And then renewable energy, that is also one category that was there. Then now in agriculture, earlier there used to be direct agriculture and indirect agriculture. Now agriculture is one. There is no fresh distinction between direct and indirect. Then target for coverage of a small farmer, SFMF, 8% was it 8%. That was 7% by 2016 and 8% by March 17. So now it is 8%. Then medium enterprise, of course, Just now we have seen that 7%. So now we have crossed that period. So that's what we have said. But these were the changes post 2014. I mean, when the decision took place that from agriculture, SSI, and OPS will move to this detailed priority sector guideline. So it was thought that we will give some 2-3 years time, and finally it was up to 20 March only when the entire percentage, whatever targets were targets and sub targets were given, they have been formalized. And target for weaker section for RRBs was also introduced for RRBs. And loans to food and agro processing center units classified under agriculture. Earlier it was under MSC, MSMEs. Now limit for housing loans and MFIs qualifying for priority sector revised guideline, and non-achievement of priority sector targets to be monitored on quarterly average basis. And as I was telling that only after seeing this, at the end of the year, RBI will finally decide what is the shortfall and what allocation should be made to the defaulting banks or the banks which are not able to fulfill their priority sector obligations, so that they make contribution to RIDF of NABARD and Mudra and NHB and SIDBI and all, so many other sectors. Now, as far as farm credit is concerned, agriculture, then loans to individual farmers for agriculture and allied activities like dairy, fishery, poultry, agriculture and all, that will qualify agriculture for farm credit. Then loans to corporate farmers, FPOs, companies of individual farmers, partnership firms, cooperative of farmers, up to aggregate limit of 2 crore per borrower. Even these big loans also. That is why the concept of weaker section, small farmer, marginal power farmer are important. And that is why sub targets have been given. Because given to bank, because you know that bank will, or money for that matter, will channelize to the most profitable sector. So in order to ensure that all sectors are properly served, the sub targets have been let down. So loans to corporate farmers also, FPOs also will qualify for priority sector under agriculture. Then agriculture infrastructure like construction of storage facility, warehouses, market yards, silos, soil conservation and watershed development, plant tissue culture, agri-biotech, vermicomposting, and all, they will also qualify for agriculture infrastructure. And then ancillary activities like SEABC. SEABC means agri business and agri clinics. They will also be qualifying for this. Agro processing will also qualify for that. Of course, we just now saw that agro processing was earlier under MSME sector or MSC sector, but now it is under agriculture. And loans to MFI for agriculture lending. Of course, these loans to MFI for agriculture will be subject to certain conditions that we'll see later. Now, so we have seen the agriculture portion. The second part, category of priority sector is manufacturing enterprises. So loans to manufacturing units which are classified as per MSMED Act. Then service enterprises, also all bank loans to MSMEs engaged in providing or rendering of services as defined in terms of investment in equipment under the same MSME Act of 2016 shall qualify for under private sector without any credit cap. All loans to KVI sector, Khadi and Village Industry sector, will be classified under micro enterprise sub target of 7.5% of ANABC. And MSME units continue to enjoy PS lending status up to 3 years after they grow out of MSME category. Now the third and fourth, in fact, two categories we come to: export credit and education. So export credit of domestic scheduled commercial bank includes pre-shipment and post-shipment credit. And incremental export credit up to 2% of ANBC will also qualify as private sector lending. And the limit is maximum of 25 crore per borrower and turnover up to 100 crore. For education, loans to individual up to rupees 10 lakh. So these only, I mean, it's not that you cannot give loan more than 10 lakh, but as far as private sector is concerned, only loans up to 10 lakh will qualify for private sector. Then housing, under housing section, loans to individual up to 35 lakhs in metros, which have a population of 10 lakh and above, and total cost cap of 45 lakh. If the cost of the construction, cost of the project is 45 lakh, if it is more than, let's say, 50 lakh, then it will not qualify. But if it is 45 lakh, then loans up to 35 lakh will count towards private sector lending of the bank. Then housing loan to individual, also 25 lakhs in other center, 35 lakh in metros, 25 lakh in other center, with a total cost cap of 30 lakh rupees. And repairs up to 5 lakhs in metro and 2 lakh in other center. Metro means, here you go by definition, metro means a city which has a population of 10 lakh and above. Then housing loans for housing projects. So now we are seeing housing loan for individuals, also housing loan for housing project of government. If it is by government agencies, ceiling of 10 lakh per dwelling unit, that will qualify for private sector lending. If housing project is for economically weaker section of low income group, so income ceiling of 3 to 6 lakh, 3 lakh and 6 lakh with weaker section and low income group, so up to 10 lakh rupees per dwelling unit. Then housing finance companies approved by NHB up to a ceiling of 10 lakh per hour, maximum 5% of total year's lending. So that will qualify for private sector. Then we come to the other category of social infrastructure and renewable energy. In fact, these are two separate: social infrastructure. Just for the sake of compressing the thing, I have put them together. So for social infrastructure, loans up to 5 crore per borrower for building school social infrastructure like schools, healthcare facilities, drinking water and sanitation, including construction, refurbishment of household furniture. And this is applicable only to the cities in Tier 2 to Tier 6. It will not be applicable for Tier 1. Means lending in Tier 1 for these purposes will not qualify for private sector classification. Then, as far as renewable energy is concerned, loans up to 15 crore per borrower for the purposes like solar-based power generators, biomass-based power generators, windmills, micro-hydel plants for non-conventional energy-based public utilities like street lighting system, remote village electrification, etc. For individual households, loan limit is up to 10 lakh. Means only up to 10 lakh for individual household if the financing is for renewable energy purposes, it will qualify for being categorized as a priority sector lending. Then there was 8th category, 7 categories we have taken so far. 8th category was other loans. Let us see what are those other loans. Just quickly, loans not exceeding 50,000 per borrower or individual, subject to the income norm. 1 lakh for rural areas, 1.6 lakh for non-rural area. Loans to the distressed persons up to rupees 1 lakh to prepay non-institutional debt. Overdraft up to 10,000 rupees under Prime Minister Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, subject to income norms. And loans to organizations for SC/ST for input supply or produce market. Loans to weaker section, that is, these are other loans. And other eligible lendings are investment by banks, because so far we have seen lending to a kind of loan to the individuals or corporates. So those were all loans in nature. Now we have certain investments also, they will qualify for priority sector lending purposes. One is investment by banks in securitized assets, interbank participation certificates, priority sector lending certificates, and loan to MFIs for on lending. So these may sound as investment in nature, but ultimately these money are going to those vulnerable, to those deprived sections for which priority sector lending guidelines were formed. So these investments also have been treated as a priority sector for priority sector achievement as far as banks are concerned. So these were the priority sector categories. What are the different categories which qualify as a priority sector? We have also seen the different targets which have been set for the banks of different categories: scheduled commercial bank, RRB, and foreign banks. Of course, I gave by way of example of a bank more than 20 branches operating in India, foreign banks more than 20 branches operating in India, and a foreign bank having less than 20 branches in India. But now this distinction will no longer be there in this financial year, means in 2020-21. So this is what we have seen so far as far as priority sector is concerned. And now we will see some allied things about priority sector, which I will say as a common guidelines for priority sector lending. So one is rate of interest will be as per RBI directive. So priority sector RBI will give direction what should be the rate of interest, because the ultimate idea was that priority sector was designed for the purpose that this was a sector, these were the areas which will not be very profitable for banks. And profitability means they cannot fix an interest rate which may appear usurious to get more money out of it. Then in these priority sector lending, there will be no service charges or institution charges on loans up to 25,000 rupees. And for SAT loan limit, it is applicable per member. Means if for the group of 10, 2,50,000 is the limit. So for that also, no service charge can be levied by the bank. Then banks have to maintain registered electronic record indicating dates of receipt, sanction, rejection, disbursement, region thereof, etc. Means a strict monitoring of priority sector, because this is one area which in a welfare economy to a democratic government will matter. Then banks to provide proper acknowledgement for PSL applications. So banks will have to provide it. The idea being that we have a proper control over priority sector application, because otherwise given to themselves, they may say that they are not in a position to have enough application, therefore they are not able to finance to the priority sector. And banks boards to prescribe time limit to convey decision on priority sector lending applications in writing. So I mean, these are some of the things that is required, so that not only to set the target, but also at the same time ensure that lending actually takes place by these directives. Before I finish the presentation, I would like to emphasize one point. While I have discussed about different target setting, different different directives, different methods of monitoring by which it is ensured that priority sector gets its due share, means these sectors get due attention from the bank. But in spite of all this, there could be a possibility that banks are not able to, not in a position to, they are not able to finance to priority sector. Means whatever targets have been set, like if it is 40%, there could be a shortfall. So instead of 40%, if it is 37% or 35% or 36%, if there is a shortfall, then what is to be done? How to make good? So to this end, a way was found out when RBI, when it will be making an analysis at the end of the year through quarterly average achievement of the bank and annual achievement. If there is a shortfall, they will try to allocate. Well, you have not been able to achieve this target, but you need to, you have got to, because you are operating in India and you have to abide by the by the government directive. You have not done so. Now, okay, this is an indirect method of contributing to priority sector lending. So one way is by giving some allocation. You have to, of that shortfall, this percentage you give it to the NABARD for the purpose of financing rural infrastructure, and this is what is known as RIDF, or Rural Infrastructure Development Fund. So every year government will see that what this year they propose to give to NABARD under this fund. Suppose they decide that 20,000 crores is to be given. That calculation will be done based on the priority sector shortfall, and accordingly, based on their shortfall, pro rata allocation will be made for this 20,000 crore of rupees. That money they will be contributing to NABARD, and NABARD in turn will be investing this money in creation of infrastructure in rural areas through construction, through construction by government, means financing the government project. And in an indirect way, the priority sector commitment will be met. Of course, that is not an advisable way, because the whole crux of the priority sector thing is, instructions are that vulnerable section, non-profitable section should get due attention from banks because of their social obligation, because of the concept of social banking. And giving to NABARD means assured return. There is no fear of any default. There is no question of any NPA. So that will not be generally encouraged. But yes, if shortfall is there, through that they will try to. So this is all I have to say about the priority sector. So we saw that how the concept of priority sector came into being, how government became serious post 1965. So from 68, the first time the concept of priority sector lending came, and then it was formalized in 72, and then targets, and some targets were set at different point of time. It was initially in form of agriculture, SSI, and other priority sector. Then new categorization took place, and April 2015, the circular, the instructions for scheduled commercial bank and foreign banks and for RRBs. In December 2015, the instructions came, and finally the master direction has come in 2016, July 2016, which has been updated up to December 2019. The number already I have given you, number of the circular, the FIDD circular, dated July 2016. So you can refer to those circular to get the feel of the instructions that I just discussed with you. And with this, I come to the end of presentation, and I shall be glad if some questions, if some questions are there. If a doubt is there, I will be in a position to clarify. Okay. Okay. So yes, now the question is, what is the rate of interest for loan under priority sector? What will happen if bank fail to meet PSL overall targets? Okay, so I discussed in the last slide, just you must have seen that the rate of interest will be what RBI will set, and as for every sector, there will be different rate of interest, and that RBI will be setting. It will not be a prerogative of bank to set the interest. So that is one. The second question is that if bank fails to meet PSL overall target, I said that normally it will be discouraged. But then, yes, if they fail, some remedy is given to them. I talked about RIDF of NABARD. Similarly, some funds are there with NHB, SIDB, and also under Mudra, the shortfall that is being collected from them and being utilized through this. But then, still, ideally, we would not like that. There should be failing in meeting their PSL. Thank you. I think it's all. So, thank you very much and have a good day.